So in this story, we're going to be talking about Lord Hannan. I think his name is now a man who doesn't like an elected bureaucrat, but is now himself an unelected bureaucrat. And if you stick around towards the end of the video or the end of this bit about him, I will tell you a funny story about an interaction I had with him on Twitter. So, Tory P urges Boris Johnson to scrap EU worker and environmental protections now Brexit is done. So this was always the objective here. And if anyone who didn't see it, you're a bit stupid, because this was the objective the whole time, is to get out of the EU, a very right-wing Brexit, and scrap workers' rights, scrap protections, because they don't believe in that stuff. I think Priti Patel and there was some other Tory MPs who wrote a book about British workers being the most idle workers in the world, or some of the most idle workers in the world, too busy gossiping. That's these people. Never forget who these people are. So, a Tory peer recently ennobled by Boris Johnson, that's such a weird name, has urged the Prime Minister to remove EU consumer and worker protections now that Brexit has happened. Daniel Hannan has said safeguards on the use of data, workers' rights, GM foods, and environmental standards should be scrapped. So use of data means data protections, what companies can and cannot do with your data, what permissions they need. Workers' rights, obviously, that could be sick pay. That could be, how safe your working environment is. How safe, how much holiday you get, things like that. Your basic wage. Could be anything to do with you as a worker. GM foods, that's genetically modified foods, and environmental standards. So that's things like pollution, and other things like that. So you can see what this man's goal is to deregulate heavily. And I'll talk about in a minute why Daniel Hannan's a fool for trying to do this or pushing for this. So change is coming. To succeed outside the EU, we need to be fitter, leaner, and more globally engaged. But these are the people here who said, we're going to raise standards. We're going to make standards way better. We're going to, have a world-class economy. No one's talking about, getting rid of standards. I think Daniel Hannan's famous for saying, absolutely no one is talking about leaving the single market. But this was always their objective. This comes after Boris Johnson promised to start breaking free from EU rules, adding that Britons have nothing to fear. Well, if Britons have nothing to fear, why are you deregulating everything? That gives us something to fear. Under the trade agreement Johnson signed, Brussels has the power to inflict wide-ranging tariffs or other sanctions on the UK if it breaches the so-called level playing field. And so I don't know what the exact mechanism is, because the department that was meant to look into the specifics of the deal has been closed down by Jacob Rees-Mogg. So we don't know exactly, well, at least I don't know, maybe you know exactly what kind of mechanisms the EU and the UK have if in case of any kind of trade dispute. When it comes to level playing field, I'm not sure, but we do know that the option of tariffs is there, which essentially scuppers the free trade deal. And if you think about it now, you have to pay things like VAT at the point of sale, I believe. You're going to have to pay customs duties. Potentially, you're going to have to do customs declarations, increase costs, just because of Bojo's deal. And so, if Daniel Hannan is successful in his goal at deregulating the UK, what that means is you're going to have to pay tariffs. So Hannan used the website to call for the ditching of temporary workers directive. This guarantees agency staff receive equal paying conditions with employees in the same business. And the reason this exists is so agency staff can't undercut the staff that are already there. Because you've got to imagine, right, if you work for a business and you strike for whatever reason, right, this company can just bring in agency staff that are cheaper than you. They can do that anyways. And so that's why this directive obviously exists. The ban on products made from genetically modified crops, something that the US is well known for. The REACH directive, which outlaws chemicals linked to health problems, including cancer, thyroid disease, hormone disruption, and slow development. So what Daniel Hannan wants is for people to get more cancer, more thyroid disease, more hormone disruption, and slower development. The end of a life vehicles directive, which aims to achieve environmentally friendly dismantling and recycling. So Daniel Hannan doesn't believe in the environment. Alternative investment fund manager directive, introduced to regulate hedge funds and and private equity following the 2008 financial crash. So he wants financial institutions to be less secure. So when they get more reckless and cause another crash, it's going to be far worse than it could have been if we had the right laws in place. He also championed for an end to the droit de suite. I butchered that. Rules which see artists paid a fee on the resale of their work. Chunks of the markets in financial instruments directive, MIFID, to the legal framework to harmonise regulations of securities, markets and trading venues, and general data protection rights aimed at giving individuals more control over their data, personal protection. And I did recently read a story about how you wanted to do more to regulate big tech, and Daniel Hannan wants to deregulate big tech, and any tech for that matter. Hannan seen as a driving force behind the Brexit movement ever since he promoted the idea in the 1990s, and then again as an MP. In the article published in the Conservative Home website, Hannan said it was time to rip up regulatory barriers. So this man's an absolute clown, and I'll tell you the story about him, where basically he got into a big argument with someone over Irish history, and then the person he was in an argument with said he's got a degree, I think it was something to do with Irish history in a certain era, and Daniel Hannan said, instead of saying I got a double first from Oxford, he said I got a double fist from Oxford, and then I quote tweeted that and put, whoa, watch out, he's got a double fist from Oxford, and then he blocked me. Hilarious story. I don't care what anyone says. And so shout outs for Peter Stefanovic for sharing this story here, which is about the government deregulating pesticides so that the farmers in the UK can now use pesticides which kill bees. So a bee-killing pesticide so poisonous that is banned in the EU may be used on sugar beet in England, the government has announced. The decision prompted fury from nature lovers and environmentalists who accuse ministers of bowing to pressure from farmers. They said the biodiversity crisis, which at least half the world's insects have disappeared, the government should be doing everything it can to save the bees, not allow them to be killed. And I know there's always stories going out about if the bees die off, then it'll only be a few more years later the humans will start dying off, because we need bees. We need them to pollinate plants and keep the cycle of life going. Environment Secretary George Eustace has agreed to let product containing the oh god, I don't know what that word is, neon something, wherever those words are, to treat beet seeds this year in an effort to protect the crop from a virus. So what you can see is they're sacrificing these bees that we need to protect us. That's what's going to happen here. And Daniel Hannan, a man who said, to put it another way, as well as being undemocratic in itself, in the sense of being run by unelected officials, Daniel Hannan, now an unelected official since losing his job as an MEP because he voted and supported for Brexit. So you can see Daniel Hannan is up there in the Kings of Clowns debate. The King of Clowns debate. So Daniel Hannan, not quite the king, but definitely putting himself in the running there. Shouts out Stefanovic again for sharing this article here. And what you can tell here is this was always the goal, to deregulate the UK, to turn us into a Singapore on the Thames, and that you always feared that, hence why they put in the provision that if the UK starts deregulating, then the EU can put tariffs in place as a punishment mechanism to stop all that the boost we get from deregulating, from having workers work for less, and potentially doing more hours, etc., less safety checks, etc., means that UK business could do better, but it means that the workers are going to suffer, the British population are going to suffer, the British people. So this man does not care about you. If you're an ordinary person, he does not care. If you got money, he probably cares. If you don't, he don't care. This was not a Brexit. He didn't push a Brexit for the ordinary person. He wanted a very right-wing, extreme Brexit, a deregulatory Brexit. This man up there with the Kings of Clowns, Daniel Hannan, Lord Clown. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. You didn't have to be Nostradamus to predict this one. But if you got played, then start talking. And start atting these people on Twitter, and start atting them, your local MP, and saying, why are certain people pushing for deregulation? I thought we were going to increase standards, not lower standards. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.